Now, I get asked a lot on social media for club recommendations to buy, from drivers to irons to putters. But today, we're going to be focusing on wedges, what is out there on the market and what you should be looking out for if you are interested in buying a super spinning machine. So the first thing we're going to do is have a look at the things you should be looking out for in a wedge, from spin to forgiveness and everything in between. Then we're going to go on to what I think are the top wedges on the market today, but we're also going to be talking you through how to play certain shots. So if you have a wedge which is new and you're not getting the most out of it, hopefully this video can help you as well. Okay, let's get to the course. So obviously, if you are buying a wedge, the first thing you want to consider is backspin. Now, backspin is usually measured in revs per minute, so the amount of revolutions it comes backwards in 1 minute. And usually with wedges, the more you pay, generally the more spin you're going to get. There are exceptions. So this is a Smithworks illegal wedge, and you can see by looking at this face, it is absolutely scoured with grooves. The horizontal grooves are thick, they are deep, and it's also scored with loads of X's as well. So this spins loads. And the face roughness is a key element if you do want a wedge that spins a lot. But it's not just about the club that you use, it's also about delivering speed and loft. So with a wedge, certainly a short shot like this, only 20 yards, you want to be generating a lot of speed, but also presenting a lot of loft to the club. Now, a way to do this is if you get the ball position pretty much central in your stance, hands pretty much level with the belt buckle, and then if you can turn your body back through, but also rather than leading with those hands, actually feeling like you're just pivoting towards the target and getting that club really gliding and whipping across the surface. You're not hitting up on the ball, you're not hitting down on the ball, you're just collecting the ball at the bottom of the swing arc. And if you can keep your speed up, that's going to generate a lot of spin. It's 60 degrees as well, this Smithworks, so I'm hoping to be able to get a fair bit of zip. So it's just being collected, going first shot. Oh, it's hit the pin. It's come back. I'm going to say that it's not because it hit the pin why it came back. That was just pure, unadulterated backspin. 7,000 revs of backspin, 27 yards of carry. That's pretty impressive, if I say so myself. Absolutely nothing to do with this wedge, this illegal spinning wedge. So pivot back, through, let that ball be collected, and just look how quickly that stopped. That is obscene. I really don't need to hit another one, I really don't, but I'm going to, because I absolutely love this wedge. Should have stopped. So something else you might want to think about if you are getting a wedge is the level of forgiveness that it offers. Now, forgiveness is not something that you would associate normally with a wedge. You'd be thinking about a driver being forgiving, irons being forgiving. But if you are struggling around the greens, just be honest about your current level of ability. So if you're thinning it, fatting it, toeing it, heeling it, and everything in between, well, I suppose that'd be the middle, but you get what I mean. You might want to consider something which is very forgiving, something with a nice big wide sole. If you think about a high toe Bigfoot wedge, if you think about an alien wedge, the best-selling wedge of all time, that has a massive rounded sole to help it glide across the turf or get through bunkers. Another one you might want to consider, Callaway CB. So this is a Mac Daddy cavity back wedge. And it's a very simple wedge, and all they've done is just put a bit of perimeter weighting around the outside to make it easy to get up in the air. But the bottom of the club isn't quite as aggressive as an alien wedge, for example. It still looks like a normal golf club, whilst the alien wedge looks alien. But if you are struggling with your short game, please allow me to demonstrate a little tip that could help. So this is called the why am I so bad at chipping technique. And all you've got to be thinking about here is when you get set up, ball position just slightly back of center, weight about 60% on the front foot. And you can see here between the shaft, my left arm, and my right arm, the letter Y is being formed. And all I want you to do is turn the body back, that letter Y remains constant, turn the body to impact, remains constant, turn the body through, remains constant. So the upper body and the arms are connected as you turn back and through and maintain that Y. Now I'm going to hit these shots out of the toe just to demonstrate a little bit more forgiveness in this CB. So that same setup, back and through, and it just pops up so easy. It actually feels really nice as well, this wedge. Just because it is a cavity back wedge, just because it gives a little bit more forgiveness, doesn't mean it can't be a good feeling, good performing wedge. Now, a lot of the magic within a wedge can be found in its sole. All wedges are going to have something called bounce angle. Now, that's the difference in angle between the leading edge and the bottom of the sole. The greater that angle, the greater amount of bounce a wedge will have. So this wedge that I'm going to be using, and I won't reveal it just yet, is 8 degrees of bounce. But if you are struggling with digging the leading edge into the ground, maybe a bounce angle of about 14 degrees could be better for you. As always, I would recommend getting yourself fit. Now, a lot of the times, if a manufacturer has paid attention to the sole of the club, you can get a weapon which is fantastic around the greens. So this Mizuno T20, vastly underrated wedge. Not 100% sure on the colour, but it is available in other shades other than Street Racer Blue. I don't know what you'd call this. However, the way that this is ground on the sole means I can open up this club face and actually utilise it from lots of different lies. So I'm going to hit a normal shot here, just the Y-to-Y method that we just spoke about. Try and hole it. Oof. I've actually pull hooked a chip shot, oh my word. However, it's probably quite a good example of what I'm talking about because the leading edge did actually dig there, kind of led with the hands a little bit too much. But when you have a good wedge, what you can do is open up the club face. That will increase the amount of bounce usually depending on that grind, but it'll give you more loft. Now, if that sole grind is well done, it still allows you to utilize the bounce, get it skimming off the ground, get much more height in this shot, and also a much quicker stop. So I'm opening up the face, I'm opening up the body slightly as well. Again, keeping a little bit of weight on that front foot. Just try to slide the club underneath. Just pops up. Go. Oh, it's not too bad. Oh, it's dropped in. Benefit of hitting to a nice slick green with the wind blowing right to left. Now, let's face it, if you are going to get a new wedge, price has to be a major consideration. And I would always say there's a lot of amazing second-hand clubs out there for a start. Wedges are a tricky one though, because the more and more a wedge is used, the less it will spin in the long run. Grooves degrade, faces degrade. So a wedge after 5 years is generally going to be spinning less than it was when it was new. But there are some new, cheaper options out there as well. A great example is this Haywood wedge. Now, this is a raw finish Haywood wedge, and I hit this maybe, I don't know, 6 or 7 times, and then put it in my office, and I was always going to do some more videos with it, but kind of just left it. And in that time period, it has just rusted up unbelievably. And if you are going to get a new wedge, actually having it rust is not a bad thing. It can add a little bit more friction to the face, and it also helps channel water away from impact. Not that that's too much of a issue out here today. And just to show you how good of a quality wedge this is for the price versus an expensive wedge, I'll hit some shots and actually compare the spin rates and workability as well. Now, the styling of this wedge isn't perfect. It's not something which, compared to my Vokeys, I think is overly pretty. However, it all really depends what that performance is like. So just to demonstrate how some of the cheaper wedges on the market can still perform with some of the big boys, I'm just going to hit some shots here. It's only a 40-yard pitch, but I'm going to use the Haywood. I'm going to use my wedge as well, the Vokey. And I've been using my Vokey now for a good year and a half almost. You can kind of tell by the wear on the face. I've been in some pretty rough situations. So only 40 yards, just going to be pivoting, ball position quite central, using more of the Y-to-Y technique to drive it up that hill. Revving it up there. Oh wow, that stopped absolutely dead. Spin 5,400, carry 33 to drive it even harder up the hill. Oh, flight on that. 5,100, carry 36. You see with that one, the angle of attack just slightly further down, just driving it forwards. So onto the Vokey. So this is one I've been using for a good year and a half now. Let's see what quad tells me about the spin rates here. So same technique, same shot. Driving up that hill. So 6,500 on that one. I need to hit it harder to get up that hill. Hit the ball harder. 5,400 again, carry 33 yards. So just those shots there, I mean, we're talking about 1,000 revs of difference between those two clubs. And yet price-wise, now obviously this isn't a all-encompassing review and comparison between the two wedges, but it comes down to how much you're willing to spend for that extra little bit of spin. And certainly on this type of shot, are you really going to tell the differences? Probably not. I just wish I could have hit it harder. It's a long way up the hill. 41 yards, big distance. So let's move on and I will give you my top recommendations of wedges to look out for. Now with wedges, I would always recommend trying to get fit. Now, as the world as it is at the moment, that's not an easy thing to do, but if you do have the opportunity, please explore it, because it's not just about loft, it's about those bounce angles, it's about turf interaction, it's about things which you've probably never thought of before in a wedge, but actually are very important. But what I'm going to do here is just recommend some wedges for like premium prices, some mid-range, and then some bargains that are out there. So first up, in that premium category, I recommend the Vokey wedges. Now yes, there is a little bit of bias going on here. You know, these are the wedges that I have in my bag, the SM8s. Now the SM8 is not the softest feeling wedge in the world, but it is workable and it is controllable. The interaction between that sole and the turf is awesome. And this is the difference, because I've got an M grind in my lob wedge, which I really like, but I've tried other grinds in the Vokey in a lob wedge and didn't quite like them as much. So it does make a difference, and I'm using my hands like a runner. Also love the fact that they're murdered out. They look absolutely awesome. But all the top brands producing wedges, all their clubs are going to be spinning a decent amount. There's no brand out there that I've tried and thought, oh my God, this is just like a really bad wedge. So the premium category of wedges really does come down to what you like the look of and the type of sole grind that you have, the amount of bounce angle and all that kind of stuff. Some other noticeables within this category, so the Callaway Jaws wedges, the MD5 that they currently have at the moment. Big fan of Callaway wedges, have been for a number of years, and they just keep producing really good clubs. They've actually got Roger Cleveland working for them, who used to be at, surprisingly, Cleveland Wedges, which is my next recommendation. So the RTX Zip Core from Cleveland, the one that they have out at the moment, again, a very good wedge. And if you only had the choice to pick one of these three, I don't think you would be able to go wrong, especially when you're spending this amount of money. Now, special mention here goes to the TaylorMade high-toe Bigfoot wedge. So this club is incredibly underrated. It's just a normal high-toe wedge, but it's got a huge sole on it, a huge sole, and deep like the oceans, which can really help get the ball up and out of all manner of lies. Think about the Alien wedge video I did, but just more of a refined version of that. And when I say refined, I mean it still looks normal. Interestingly enough, with the Bigfoot wedge, and I know I'm banging on about the sole quite a lot, but it has a huge surface area. So what the engineers like to do on tour is get one of those wedges and grind it down and then give it to the tour players. It's a good club, check it out. Now in the mid-range price, there's a lot of competitors out there. Obviously we've spoken about Haywood quite a lot, but there are plenty of others out there. The only weakness I have in this particular area is I've not tried enough of them to form a general opinion. However, when you start looking at this price range, all of a sudden you start to venture into the second-hand club market, and there are so many good deals to be had here. So there's quite a bit of research which has gone into this, but generally the consensus is that after a couple of years, if you are a regular golfer, those wedges are going to be losing about 700 to 1,000 revs per minute of spin on a full shot. But that is if you are a regular golfer. And what I mean by that is you're playing and you're practicing with your wedges. If you're not a super keen golfer, but you love the game, you play every week, but you're not around the green grinding on your pitches and your chips, then you looking at a wedge which is 2 to 3 years old second hand, as long as that owner hasn't worn out the face, that could be a really good choice for you. Now I'm just going to throw up the Golf Bidder website here, so Golf Bidder partner of the channel, but obviously go to them for all my second hand club needs, and you have a look here at some of the wedges that you can get for 50 quid that were out 4 to 5 years ago. Depending on the state of the face, depending on what the previous owner did with them, that could be a fantastic wedge. I mean, bear in mind, wedge technology is much like the rest of golf technology as well. We're talking about incremental improvements each year, if there is an improvement each year. And within wedges, when was that last massive leap forward in wedges? All I'm saying is that if you can get a wedge from a couple of years ago, which is in really good nick, you get it for half the price and probably not see a difference in performance. And even if there is a difference in performance, if you look at your wedge shot and you think, ooh, that's 700 revs less spin a minute than what I would have got with a new wedge, then fair enough. Spend your money, get a new one. All right, guys, just want to say a massive thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Get down into those comments below. Let me know the wedge you are currently using and some of the wedges that have taken your fancy very recently. Drop a like on the video. Go check me out on my other social media as well. And we will see you down here next time.